There's a creature living right now on the ocean floor. You've probably never heard of it. It's roughly the size of your thumb. It has no brain to speak of. And with a single movement faster than you can blink, it creates something hotter than the surface of the sun. Not metaphorically, literally, hotter than the sun. The pistol shrimp doesn't know this, of course. It's not thinking about plasma physics. It's not thinking at all. It just snaps. And in that snap, for a fraction of a millisecond, the universe does something genuinely insane. Now here's why this matters to you. Humanity has spent decades and billions of dollars trying to harness that exact same energy. Not because we want tiny ocean weapons. Because cavitation, the phenomenon this shrimp triggers casually on its way to lunch, is one of the most destructive, most misunderstood, and most potentially revolutionary forces in all of engineering. And we still haven't figured it out. The shrimp has... Here's the thing about cavitation. Most people have never heard of it. But if you've ever sailed on a ship, flown in a plane, had an ultrasound, or used a water pump, you've benefited from a century of engineers desperately trying to stop it. Cavitation is what happens when a liquid moves so fast that it drops below its own vapor pressure. Tiny bubbles form, and then almost instantly they collapse. Not gently, violently, with a pressure spike that can exceed 700 atmospheres in a space the size of a grain of sand. 700 atmospheres. That's more than the deepest point of the Mariana Trench. And it happens inside your pump, inside your propeller, inside your turbine. Ship propellers, the kind that move aircraft carriers across oceans, get eaten alive by cavitation. The metal doesn't just scratch, it pits. It erodes. Blades that cost tens of thousands of dollars to manufacture get chewed through in months. The U.S. Navy alone spends hundreds of millions every year just maintaining propellers against cavitation damage. Submarine engineers have spent decades designing shapes to minimize it. They ran thousands of simulations, built full-scale test tanks, failed, iterated, partially succeeded, and still carry the scars. Medical ultrasound is the same story. Focused cavitation in theory could vaporize tumors without surgery. Target cancer cells with sound waves, create controlled bubble collapse right inside the tumor, destroy it from the inside out. Beautiful idea. The problem? Control. The bubbles form. They collapse, they destroy, but they don't listen, they don't aim, and they don't stop when you ask them to. We've built billion-dollar laboratories around this problem, and in a shallow reef somewhere off the coast of Indonesia, a shrimp solved it. The pistol shrimp is not impressive to look at. It's small, usually about 4 centimeters long, and it lives buried in crevices on tropical reefs. If you passed one in a tide pool, you'd probably think it was just another shrimp. You'd be very wrong. The pistol shrimp has one claw that is grotesquely oversized, not by a little, by a lot, sometimes nearly half the length of its entire body. And inside that claw is a mechanism that evolution spent millions of years turning into one of the most violent tools in the animal kingdom. Here's what happens when it snaps. The shrimp cocks its claw, an internal spring mechanism loads, like pulling back a trigger, and releases it. The two parts slam together so fast they travel at 26 meters per second. That's 94 kilometers per hour. With a limb the size of your fingernail. At that speed, the water between the closing claw doesn't have time to escape, so it does something strange. It vaporizes. A cavitation bubble forms a tiny sphere of near vacuum, surrounded by water under enormous pressure. And then it collapses. In that collapse, temperatures inside the bubble spike. Scientists measured it somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 Kelvin. The surface of the sun sits at around 5,800 Kelvin. A shrimp, a 4-centimeter shrimp, creates a flash, hotter than the sun. But here's what nobody talks about. The shrimp doesn't snap randomly. It aims. It controls the direction of that bubble collapse with extraordinary precision. The shockwave travels outward in a focused cone, a biological missile, and hits its target with enough force to stun, kill, or dismember prey instantly. No poison, no claws digging in, just physics deployed with lethal accuracy. And it does this thousands of times a day. The claw regenerates, the process repeats, no wear, no erosion, no maintenance. Think about that for a second. Every collapse that would eat through a steel propeller in months, this shrimp experiences it constantly, in the same claw, for its entire life. The secret is geometry. The claw's internal architecture creates a bubble that collapses not into the claw, but away from it. The shock wave is directed outward. The energy is focused forward. The claw itself is structurally shielded by the shape of the cavity it creates. Evolution didn't stumble onto this, it selected for it. Over millions of generations, every shrimp with a slightly better claw geometry survived longer, fed better, reproduced more. Passed those millimeter-level structural improvements on. No engineer designed that, no committee approved it, no project manager demanded a revised timeline. Nature just killed the shrimps with bad claws, until only the ones with perfect ones were left. And that's where it gets interesting. Researchers at MIT and Georgia Tech have been studying pistol shrimp claws not as curiosities, but as blueprints. Because if you understand the exact geometry that protects that claw from its own shockwave, you can apply that geometry to propellers, to pumps, to ultrasound transducers. Directed cavitation is the goal, not eliminating bubble collapse, harnessing it. The medical applications alone are staggering. Focused cavitation already ablates kidney stones without surgery, a procedure called lithotripsy, where shock waves shatter the stone from the inside. The pistol shrimp's mechanism suggests a refinement, a cavity shape that controls collapse direction so precisely you could target a single cell cluster in soft tissue, a surgeon's scalpel that never touches you. In materials science, controlled cavitation surfaces are already being tested for industrial cleaning, blasting, microscopic contamination off surfaces with zero abrasive contact, ship hulls, medical implants, semiconductor wafers, and in propulsion, the original problem engineers are now designing propeller blade profiles with microgeometries inspired by the shrimp claw's internal structure, not to eliminate cavitation, to make it happen where they want it, in a direction they control, at a scale that protects the blade. We spent a century fighting this force. A shrimp spent 50 million years aiming it. And honestly, that gap says something uncomfortable about us. There's a version of this story where the pistol shrimp is just a fun fact, a party trick. Did you know there's a shrimp hotter than the sun? People nod. Someone Googles it. The conversation moves on, but there's another version, and I think it's the one worth sitting with. We live in an era of unprecedented technological ambition. We're building machines that think, launching rockets that land themselves, editing genomes. We're doing genuinely extraordinary things. And yet, in a tidal pool, in a burrow barely wider than a pencil, a creature with no brain, no funding, no research proposal is running a precision weapons program that our best physicists are still trying to reverse engineer. Not because it's trying to, because it had to. That's the thing about evolution. It doesn't innovate out of curiosity. It innovates out of desperation. Every perfect solution in the animal kingdom is a scar from a problem that killed everyone who solved it wrong. The shrimp isn't impressive despite its simplicity. It's impressive because of it. No wasted motion, no redundant systems, no over-engineering. Just the minimum amount of biology needed to do something extraordinary. Maybe the lesson isn't that nature is smarter than us. Maybe the lesson is that we've been asking the wrong question. We keep asking, how do we control this force? How do we stop it? How do we eliminate the problem? The shrimp asked, what if the problem is the weapon? 3.8 billion years of research and development, sitting on the ocean floor, waiting for us to pay attention. We're paying attention now. Better late than never. If that kind of thinking interests you, if you want to know what other quiet, overlooked organisms are silently solving the problems we're spending billions to crack, subscribe, because we're just getting started.